In this life, there are countless methods where an individual could harm another. The primary realms in which this occurs is in the physical, mental, emotional, spiritual, and financial, not to mention the public and private domain. Character assassination, or defamation of character, is an obvious example of harm executed in the public realm that undoubtedly translates into private realm suffering. Examples aside, when someone interacts with other people, from family members to the general public, there is always a risk that their conduct will hurt others. This fact remains whether the harm is intentional or not. In today's climate, with cancel culture running abound and an ostensibly hypersensitivity to difficult topics, there's no question some type of damage will occur. Someone is bound to be offended by something, but nonetheless, and to paraphrase Ricky Gervais, just because you're offended, this doesn't imply that your reaction is justified, or that you have the moral high ground. Fundamentally, the truth about truth is that it's inherently offensive to those who don't want to hear it. Plato wasn't kidding when he wisely remarked that there is nobody more despised than he who professes the truth. Liars and frauds hate the truth because it exposes their deceptions, shortcomings, and folly. The truth hurts, but a painful lie causes more damage in the long run. As such, when you carry out your business, seek not to avoid causing any harm, but rather, seek to cause the least amount of harm possible. Don't sacrifice telling the truth and acting honestly in a vain attempt to spare someone's feelings, yet at the same time, conduct yourself in a manner that avoids unnecessary maliciousness. Today's discussion will outline reasons why an individual should aim to cause the least amount of harm, rather than none at all. This will predominantly be demonstrated through the conclusion that avoiding causing any harm is impossible, or extremely arduous, no matter how careful one ventures through life. Fundamentally, an individual won't be able to avoid causing any harm whatsoever. This is veritable no matter how they conduct themselves. Venturing through life, you're bound to find people who will be hurt by your actions. Through mere existence you cause harm, and this is most apparent with any enemies you may have. They're offended simply at your existence, and this is in addition to any possible actions you have already implemented that would cause offense. If you have enemies, then it implies that you stand for something, and these principles you steadfastly hold on to will inevitably encounter resistance at some juncture. Politically charged issues, where there's a rigid divide especially, is the most obvious instance where merely occupying one camp will cause harm in the form of offense to the other side. The point is that no matter what you do, you'll inevitably offend or cause harm to someone, and this isn't inherently detrimental. What would be disastrous for yourself, though, is to walk on eggshells and never stand for any principle in a vain attempt to please others. Unironically, standing for nothing is evidently still holding steadfastly to a principle, and one that can be disastrously injurious at that. As we've seen for at least a decade now, perhaps throughout all of human history, sacrificing one's principles and truth to avoid harm is never a worthy cause. In your personal life, if there is someone you love, like a family member or significant other, then you have to profess the truth, even if this means that they will be harmed by it. Say, for example, that they are failing to meet certain obligations. Whether this is due to laziness or something far more damning, it cannot be left unattended. Calling this person out on their failure to meet specific obligations will cause offense, surely. It will probably hurt their feelings, ego, and pride, among other aspects. However, refraining to tell the truth and pull them back to the center from their temporary lapse will only exacerbate the situation. It's far easier to patch a tiny hole in a ship that's still afloat, compared to bucketing water out on an already sinking ship. Many issues will become exacerbated through inaction. Addiction is one of them, and it's far less detrimental to nip it in the bud sooner rather than later. Acknowledging these facts, does this imply that one should never hold back? That they should forgo any tact and tell the truth in the most direct, blunt manner, even if this will knowingly inflame tensions? No, as mentioned, one should conduct themselves in a manner that is conducive to causing the least amount of harm. But what does this look like in practice? Aiming to cause the least amount of harm implies that you should act respectfully in your dealings with other people. This assertion isn't simply made out of some altruistic idealism, as there are also practical reasons for its suggestion. Telling the truth, acting uprightly, and cleaving to certain ideals can all be performed effectively while simultaneously minimizing harm. Great leaders who amass a substantial following are those who tell the truth and invoke particular principles, but they avoid acting maliciously wherever possible. When addressing issues, their charisma enables them to tactfully highlight the root cause and propose a proper solution. Evidently, some of their proposals will be met with stiff opposition and offense, especially by those who adamantly oppose this person. Whether it's due to differing moral ideals or petty jealousy, this resistance constitutes some harm. Regardless, by avoiding unnecessary maliciousness and generally seeking a sufficient solution, this person is able to cause the least amount of harm. Pursuing this objective also helps to alleviate further criticism and resistance had this method not been utilized. If you still aren't getting the idea, let's return to the family illustration. It's no secret that family matters can become extremely dramatic, often because they're so personal. Each member likely has their own goals, aspirations, and vision for how life should proceed. Conflict is inevitable, but it can certainly be managed. If you're trying to convince your family member of something, like telling them a truth they don't want to hear, what manner do you think will work the best? Letting your emotions get the best of you when you call them out on some failure, or calmly raising the issue and its detrimental implications on others? If you said the latter method, then you've been paying attention. As we've witnessed with various political issues, incessant name-calling and demonizing of opposition isn't an effective manner to attract followers to a cause, not to mention its heavily recycled nature has rendered it useless. Acting maliciously and forgoing any attempts to propose genuine solutions causes more harm than good. A common Christian teaching is that when telling the truth, it must be done out of love. This can be interpreted as respect for another person, possessing enough respect to treat them as a fellow human being worthy of the same dignity that is afforded to you, especially when you need to be humbled as well. As the discussion illustrated, it's evidently impossible to avoid causing any harm. Other people will be offended by your existence in some cases, whereas on different occasions it'll be due to your thoughts and actions. There's nothing inherently wrong with this fact, and it's a byproduct of human existence. Individuals should avoid causing unnecessary harm when they are aware of it, rather than none at all. This is easier said than done, of course, but acting respectfully towards other people, even when they don't act respectfully towards you, is a solid place to begin. Fundamentally, don't reward evil with more evil. Seek to do good wherever you go. Remember that how you treat others is often a reflection of your internal perceptions. Treat others how you wish to be treated, respectfully and with dignity. If you haven't done so thus far, try it out. You'll find that amassing friends and allies becomes a heck of a lot easier, which ultimately proves useful when championing a specific cause or ideal.